So quiet in here, huh? Well, first of all, today is a very exciting day for San Francisco. I'm San Francisco Mayor London Breed, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you and the folks who are joining us today to prepare for APEC, the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation that's going to be happening in San Francisco, this major summit of 21 economies with some of our leaders from around the world. And San Francisco was chosen by our President Joe Biden, who selected our city as the place to show off the United States of America. This is big. Today, I'm joined by a number of our department heads to talk about some of the specifics related to APEC, but I'm also joined by the finance chair for APEC, our current acting governor, Lieutenant Eleni Kounalakis is here with us, and she'll be talking a little bit about APEC and her role and all the great work that she's been doing to help us get to this point. We also have our premier sponsor, the top sponsor, with a $4.65 million contribution to get us over our $20 million goal. Greg Saris, the chairman of Grayton Resort and Casino and Resort, is here today to talk a little bit about their work and how APEC is important to them as well. Our chief of protocol, Miriam Madroglu, is also joining us, who's been doing a fabulous job of helping to coordinate all the work that we need to do here in San Francisco. And just for a perspective of what's, of those 21 economies, we have close to 17 consulates or trade offices of those 21 economies here in San Francisco, as well as sister city relationships with 7. So it's exciting to develop these relationships, talk about economic growth and prosperity and what this will mean for San Francisco. So a little later, we'll get into the logistics because the Secret Service has last week put out their plan and a number of street closures and other things. So we'll get into the details about that. But I just want to talk about the importance of APEC and just how significant this is. San Francisco is an iconic city, is a city of firsts, is a city of dreamers, of innovators. And in 1945, San Francisco played host to the establishment of the United Nations. And when we have been talking about APEC, we have said there has not been another international event of this magnitude in San Francisco since then, in terms of the number of leaders from around the world. So this is very significant, and we are looking forward to the relationships that occurred, the financial connections that are made, because people want to be in San Francisco, the artificial intelligence capital of the world, where there are 20 top AI companies. 8 are right here in San Francisco, because this is where it all starts. The invention of the television, the introduction of the iPhone, the cable cars created here. Oftentimes the things and the innovation that happens in San Francisco, other places follow while we lead. And this is why San Francisco is the perfect place to host APEC. People are really excited about those possibilities. And what can we expect? As I said, 21 member economies, over 1,200 CEOs, over 2,200 foreign press, and 20,000 visitors from around the world who will descend on San Francisco. We anticipate almost $53 million into our local economy, whether that's hotel tax revenue, our restaurants, our small businesses. This is going to be significantly financially impactful for the people here in San Francisco. Now, just imagine what that means in terms of the decision making. Just imagine the panels that are happening, the relationships that get made. Before the pandemic, San Francisco and the relationship, particularly with Asia, was one of partnership, was one of interaction and innovation. We know our governor right now is in China, visiting China, and it's important for us to maintain and really build upon those relationships in order to ensure that our economic tides are strong. I want to really take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the security plans. I know that the White House, the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. Secret Service, I want to thank them for their partnership, but also just explain that when they announced their plan, we are anticipating leaders from around the world, and I know there has been a little bit of pushback or concern. As soon as the announcements were made around the perimeters and the Embarcadero, Moscone Center, as well as Nob Hill, the next day there were meetings, with community to talk about the impacts, because before that announcement, we could not have those discussions with communities and neighborhoods, and now that we are hearing from the community about what it is that they need in order to ensure that the disruption is not significant, especially to the people who live and work in the areas that are going to be impacted. Ultimately, the Secret Service is making this decision for the protection of many of the leaders that are visiting, and we want to make sure that things are safe, but we also want to make sure that they're successful and our businesses thrive and the folks who live in these areas, especially our seniors, are not significantly impacted. So I'm really grateful and excited about the plans we have to support community to ensure that the disruption is at a minimum. I want to also just appreciate just the work that so many of our departments have been doing, and they can talk a little bit about that. Our assessor recorder, Joaquin Torres, has been leading a community effort with Katie Tang, who's in charge of small businesses in San Francisco, trying to reach out to neighborhoods, because part of what we want from APEC, we don't want them to just be downtown in Moscone Center. We want them to go to places like Leland Avenue, where at the start of APEC, they'll be doing an incredible light show. We want them to go to the Portola, where there's great businesses and wonderful food. We want them to take this bike ride with Supervisor Joel Longardio. He's coordinating a APEC bike ride out in the Richmond. And it's so many different folks who are focusing on making sure that there's a connection between community and all the great things in San Francisco and what happens with the delegates and the people who come here. We'll be setting up an app so people can learn about the city. They can learn about the great restaurants. They can learn about Chinatown and Capitol, where they can get some good fried chicken wings. They can learn about some good places to eat, good places to shop, and good places to experience San Francisco, including some of our newest attractions, like Tunnel Top Park, where you have the majestic view of the Golden Gate Bridge and the Palace of Fine Arts. We want a well-rounded experience of San Francisco. Yes, we want them to go to Pier 39 and Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge, but we also want them to visit and see our neighborhoods and our neighborhood treasures, places that locals love and enjoy. We want them to experience San Francisco as a whole. So there will be opportunities for community input, but more importantly, there will be disruptions, and we want to make sure the public is as informed as possible during this time. So we want to invite you to look at these particular resources that can be tools in order to ensure that you are kept up to date. You can sign up for text messages with Alert SF text notifications. You can visit sf.gov/APEC, APEC, or you can call 311. If there is a problem, a concern, some other issue, some questions, 311 will be available to the public to answer those questions. But in the meantime, websites as well as Alert SF to get updates about what is going to be happening throughout the week of APEC and how it might impact various street closures, parts in your neighborhood and your community, questions, concerns. We want to make sure that we are responsive to the community as much as possible. And we also want this to be a great event for the city, because for those of us who live here, this is, we know, a major city, and major cities have challenges. But we also know, especially in our neighborhoods, how wonderful San Francisco is and how inviting it is and how much we love to play host to visitors. So part of what we want to make sure that we do for APEC is do exactly that. So I have two speakers here today that I want to introduce, because their support has been invaluable in helping us to get to a place where we are using private resources to help support this effort. We had to fight to get APEC here in San Francisco, and when the president selected us, it also came with a big financial responsibility, so we needed a lot of heavy lifting in terms of fundraising, and so I really want to appreciate my team, my Chief of Protocol, Miriam Madroglu, and Marone Foster for all their great work. And I want to also, at this time, introduce the chair of the finance chair for APEC, our current Lieutenant Governor, Acting Governor, Eleni Kounalakis.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today with the press talking about the APEC Summit. This is so incredibly exciting, and the city of San Francisco has stepped up to produce what I think will be one of the great APEC summits in the history of the organization, and it's an incredible privilege to be part of it. Going back now over a year ago, the state of California urged the Biden administration and the State Department to choose a location in California to host the APEC summit. San Francisco and other California cities put packages in, as did cities across the United States. San Francisco was selected because it was clear that with the conference centers, the hotel rooms, and the ability to showcase one of the great cities of the United States, this was the right place for the president to host the summit. And for those of you who don't know, of the 22 member nations of APEC, every year a different country is the one that hosts. And when it came to President Biden, this was not a small decision on the side of the White House. And what we at the state level argued is that California is the right place to welcome these world leaders for a few very significant reasons, just very briefly. One, you look at the population of the United States, it's about 6% AAPI, according to the last census. In California, it's 17% AAPI. That is extraordinary. It's even higher, as we know, in cities in San Francisco County and across the Bay Area. In terms of trade, California, as we all know, is the 5th largest economy in the world. We are the powerhouse economy that we experience here, largely because of our interconnectedness to the Pacific region. About 70% of all of California's trade takes place between our state and two-way trade and members of the APEC countries. So it, to us, was obvious, but of course, once California, San Francisco was chosen, it fell upon the city of San Francisco to deliver something extraordinary and deliver something that was going to be costly. And for the mayor to insist that this was going to be done through private funds was a very big part of the mandate for leaders, for people like myself, but also for city leaders to step up and help. Now, you've all been given a list of the individuals and the companies that have contributed from $100,000, $500,000, many at the $1 million level, one at the $2 million level. But we are here today, and the mayor is going to introduce the chairman of the Grayton Rancheria. But I just would like to say one thing about the contribution of Grayton. You know, the theme of the APEC summit is sustainability, and the theme of the summit is about diversity and inclusion. Nothing could make me prouder as Lieutenant Governor of the state of California to see one of our 110 federally recognized tribes right here in the San Francisco Bay Area step up to be the premier sponsor of APEC. Many of these countries also have indigenous peoples, and so for us to be able to say that in hosting here in San Francisco, it is one of our local tribes that would step up to partner at this level to me, is yet another element of what we have to be proud of. So with that, let me just say for everybody watching, it's not too late to become a sponsor of APEC. With that, I again just want to recognize, as the mayor has, her incredible team, particularly in the Department of Protocol, who've worked tirelessly, all of those who've contributed as sponsors, the Bay Area Council, which has been extremely involved, the California Chamber of Commerce, and most importantly, the leadership of Mayor London Breed in bringing together the supporters and the people who are going to be able to deliver, not just for the city, not just for the state, but for the United States of America, an excellent APEC summit. Thank you.
Thank you to our Lieutenant Governor. And I just want to put some things into perspective. It's really exciting to not only be able to meet our goal of raising over $20 million, but to also see over 1,200 people sign up to volunteer for APEC. So it's just people really excited about this and what it means for the city. And as I said, San Francisco loves to play host. So we are really grateful and looking forward to what is to come. Now, at this time, I want to introduce Chairman Greg Saris. And I first met the chairman when we both were honored by the Gay Men's Chorus, which is, you know, a San Francisco institution. They show up and they show out and they just bring people together. And he was honored by the Gay Men's Chorus because of the consistency of support that he continues to provide to them. There are a lot of different things that he's done in San Francisco, supporting various causes without necessarily being recognized for it or trying to get any attention for it, but more so because he truly cares. Under his leadership, Grayton Resort and Casino has made 2,000 team members their priorities by providing important employee programs, including legal support for their path to U.S. citizenship, ESL programs and scholarship programs, along with in-house training and development. His business supports social justice and environmental stewardship programs, and this includes his long-standing support of a number of organizations, specifically in San Francisco. So we are really grateful and excited to welcome him as a partner, not just because over the years I've gotten to know him and know that he has a big heart for supporting incredible causes, but more importantly, he is committed to San Francisco, he's committed to the Bay Area, and he wants to ensure that APEC is a huge success for us. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman Greg Saris.
Thank you, Mayor Breed, for the kind words, and Lieutenant Governor Gunalakis, current governor, thank you also for the kind words. As what happens when you go last, they take a lot of your speech. Thank you. First and foremost, I want to say this morning that we are standing on the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone tribe. This is the indigenous tribe of this area, so I do want to acknowledge them. For me, the acknowledgement, of course, is important, but particularly as a native Californian, we're very touchy about whose territory we're on, and when we're speaking, we be respectful. The Federated Indians of Great Rancheria are from across the bay. So we're comprised of the survivors of Coast Miwok from Marin County and Southern Pomo from southern Sonoma County. At the time of contact, there are approximately 20,000 of us in that area. Today, the 1,500 enrolled members are the descendants. We all trace our ancestry back to one of 14 survivors, all of whom were women, concubines or wives of the early Americans. We were given a rancheria in the early part of the 20th century. In 1922, our rancheria was established for the so-called homeless Indians of the area of Tamales Bay, Bodega Bay, Sebastopol, and the vicinities thereof. They gave us 15.5 acres, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And we survived there and for a long time, but not many of us could not live there because it was small and basically uninhabitable. So we worked in various places. It was a long and dangerous and problematic history. getting to where we are today. The rancheria that was given to us was terminated illegally in 1966. In 1992, we began an effort, and we wrote a bill that we finally got through Congress. December 27, 2000, President Clinton signed the bill acknowledging that the federal government illegally terminated our rancheria. So we were again a federally recognized tribe, but the bill did not say we would have any land or give us land back on which to live in our Aboriginal territory. So we considered many things, different things. We didn't necessarily want to go into gambling or the casino business. We just wanted to be able to take care of our people. But the opportunity came up finally when we didn't have any other opportunities to buy land. And we decided at that point that we knew we could be a good business and we knew we could make money. But as we were just thinking about that, we also said to ourselves, we will only go this route if it will be a business that will benefit Indian and non-Indian alike. If it will be create for us a platform for social justice and environmental stewardship in the spirit of our ancestors. So we persevered, and the tribe created the Grayton Resort and Casino. So we have, as was mentioned, been as true as to our word as possible. We do have now over 2,000 team members, all of whom have the Kaiser Gold Cadillac plan. No one pays anything out of their paycheck. $10 deductible for surgery or aspirin. We also provide full vision, full dental. We have a 24-hour buffet where we have an organic food for people, an Asian food section, and an American section, plus a full salad bar. As was mentioned, anybody who's working on a green card, we pay for and work them through their citizenship and have a graduation every year. We have literacy programs and many other types of programs for our team members. We've had a profound effect on the area. Because of our wages and benefits, the local hotel industry, we're in a, as you know, Sonoma, Napa, there's a huge, with a great business and so forth, a huge tourist business. But as a result of our wages and benefits, we have raised the basic wage in the area for the other hotels. And it's had a profound effect. And we hope to do the same. We have also established an organic farm where we are feeding all of our elders from the farm and all the people in our farm, or in our tribe. And that's one prong of our environmental program. The other prong of our environmental program is environmental restoration. And we've created precedent-setting co-management agreements with the local government for parks, and as you may know, with the national government. We are co-managing now Point Reyes National Seashore, 27,000 acres on our Aboriginal territory. But all of that brings me here today, because when we heard about the APEC opportunity to help the city meet its needs for APEC, we thought, what an incredible, incredible opportunity, particularly in the ways that it aligns with our values. The importance of diversity, the importance of social justice, and showcasing what the Bay Area is about in so many ways, particularly the city of San Francisco. This is a diverse and beautiful city, and we want to support the city and what it stands for and what it has stood for: innovation, justice, and an acceptance of many different people, just as our casino resort does. As we say in the casino resort, the only thing we don't tolerate is intolerance. So again, when we had this opportunity, we thought it was perfect to support the city so that the city could showcase the APEC countries what a beautiful place and thriving place San Francisco is. At the same time, it was so important for us to, as an indigenous nation, to show the APEC countries and participants here our business model of social justice and environmental stewardship, and the ways in which that model works so well towards profit and well-being for not just an indigenous community, but other communities contiguous to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I failed to mention that Chairman Saras was actually a professor for over 35 years and just has a wealth of knowledge and history about so many things. We appreciate you helping us to all understand your tribe better and the work that you're doing. So thank you again for your sponsorship and your support. I want to also mention that because of Graydon's support for APEC, it took us over the top in terms of what we were trying to raise to meet our goals, and it has allowed us to implement a campaign for APEC and a campaign to really highlight what's so amazing about San Francisco. And we are seeing, in addition to the work that we're doing with APEC and our work to get the word out, we also know that there are other great leaders in San Francisco, like Chris Larson of Ripple and Bob Fisher of The Gap, who put together their own campaign to instill pride in the folks who live here as well as the people who visit here. And, you know, that is important because it's important to remind people of who we are as a city. It's important to make sure that we remember that this is a great city, a city of opportunity. There are so many movements that have occurred here, whether it was, you know, the Harlem of the West and the Fillmore with all these legendary Duke Ellington and Billie Holiday and people who said, this is like my mini New York, when they would come here to perform. Or, you know, it's during the Summer of Love where Janis Joplin and people who would come from everywhere to San Francisco during the 60s to see Jimi Hendrix and others play at Golden Gate Park. We are still creating the pathway for innovation and excitement, especially now with artificial intelligence. There's so much that's happening in San Francisco with technology and innovation and creativity, and that has not changed. It is so important that we remind people who we are. We don't let others tell our story, you know, of people, of various videos and moments in time, especially people who don't necessarily live here or live far away from here. We know the experiences of San Francisco, and in fact, when 250 delegates came here from Canada, from Mexico, from China, from all the various, from Australia, they said, we heard the stories about San Francisco, but wow, and we took them to certain neighborhoods, the Soma neighborhood and Tenderloin and other places. We wanted them to understand and see what San Francisco is, and they said, San Francisco has challenges just like we do where we come from. But this is an amazing city. It's a beautiful city, and we can't wait for APEC. We ended it with a performance, Dear San Francisco, at Club Fugazi. And let me tell you, that just sent people over the top, because that's a performance, again, that instills pride. It's really a love letter to San Francisco. So when we hear about all those things that folks want to talk about that may be problematic, it's so important for each and every one of us to do our part to make sure that the other story is being told, the real story of San Francisco. APEC will put us on center stage like never before. And at that time, we'll have an opportunity to showcase the very best of this city. We're not hiding our problems. We're not trying to, you know, do something different. We're going to continue to help get people off the streets like we have been. And since I've been mayor since 2018, we've helped over 10,000 people exit homelessness that are no longer on the streets of San Francisco. So tell that story. Our police department has been working overtime and pushing for changes around retail theft and a number of car break-ins, and making sure that when someone commits a crime of violence in this city, that they get caught and they get held accountable. Tell those stories of San Francisco, the great work that we're doing to turn things around, to ensure that the message is such that it is telling the true story of both sides of what is happening in our city. And I must say, it's starting to look and feel good. And I, for one, am excited about not only what happens as a result of business ties and relationships in San Francisco, but what comes afterwards is, I think, something that will transform our economy and get San Francisco back on the right path. and this will be the international stage, APEC, to show us the way. So thank you all so much for being here, and at this time I want to open it up for questions first for the chairman and for the lieutenant governor before we get into the more detailed questions from the various department heads who are located here as well.
Rachel Swan, San Francisco Chronicle. I have a question for the chairman. Just in terms of your generous contribution to and sponsorship of APEC, you talked about how it aligns with the casino's values. I was just wondering if you're also hoping for perhaps some economic benefits, if there's maybe another long-term expansion plan, if this would be an opportunity to court investments, court tourism, like what other kinds of benefits are you hoping to see?
Thank you, Rachel, for the question. Also, thank your newspaper for the wonderful review of my play at Word for Word Theater, Citizen, on Sunday. Well, tell your theater reviewer. Yes, I mean, there's will be opportunity for us to interact with the APEC nations, and again, it certainly will promote tourism. Obviously, we do a lot of business with the entire Bay Area and San Francisco. So, you know, the opportunities, I'll be meeting with many people, I'm sure, and the opportunities will come up. But I'm mostly concerned or happy to present in terms of our business, to show the model to others. I think in a day like today, when there's so much difficulty in the world, good stories and good business models are really needed. And it's a great opportunity for the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria to showcase a business based and predicated on indigenous values.
Questions for the chairman?
Actually, for Lieutenant Governor. Yeah. Madam Lieutenant Governor, Sergio Quintana, I'm a reporter over at NBC Bay Area News. At the news event last week, we did see CHP as part of the uniforms of people who are going to be providing service from the state or support from the state. Can you talk about some of the other support services that California is going to be able to be contributing to this effort here in APEC?
So I'm going to let the security team talk about how all law enforcement is working together. But yes, you are correct. California Highway Patrol is involved and has been actually here working with the city over the last few months about some of the challenges that we're experiencing in public safety. I'm a San Franciscan too, by the way, so I have been watching that with care. But let me just say overall, you know, we knew the President of the United States was going to choose a location for APEC. I'm a former United States ambassador. I know how these things work, and I knew very early on the magnitude of this opportunity. There has not been a diplomatic gathering of this magnitude in the state of California since the United Nations Treaty was signed in 1945. I fully understood what this opportunity was for the state of California, which is the state that I represent. And as I mentioned, other cities in the state put packages together. But it was San Francisco that prepared the winning package and has the responsibility as the host city to drive all of the elements necessary working with the federal government. So the state, in terms of law enforcement, is participating. Certainly, we're participating in getting the word out about partnerships. And of course, we have both of our senators. Nancy Pelosi is very involved, the governor. We are all honorary co-chairs of the host committee. So it has been, without question, an all-hands-on-deck effort. But ultimately, it is up to the city to deliver on this event. And so they are the ones who are coordinating the effort to deliver the technical elements of it from this point forward, including, by the way, and maybe the mayor or Mariam Murdiglu can talk about it, but I think it's one of the most exciting parts is that the city will be hosting an extraordinary welcome reception on November 15th down at the Exploratorium. Again, this is the city effort to pay for all of this. And after that larger reception across the city, there will be a series of dinners so that these heads of state, these presidents and prime ministers from the invited countries, which, as we know, includes China and Japan, Australia and New Zealand, Korea, the Philippines, Mexico, Canada, Peru, Chile. This is extraordinary. And when these heads of state convene here to be spread throughout the city in residences for these dinners is another very exciting part of it. And I know the governor is invited to be part of this as well. And I think you will see leaders, statewide leaders from across California participating in those.
Any question for the chairman?
Hi, Greg.
Good morning.
With the, San Francisco Business Times. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the business model that you're describing that you want to impart to some extent to some of the people visiting in town for APEC. I'm just curious if you could elaborate on what, a little bit more on what exactly this business entails, this successful business model you're describing regards to sustainability, and what kind of influence you're hoping you could have on the folks who are coming into town.
Okay, that's a big question, and be careful. As was mentioned, the Honorable Mayor mentioned, I'm a professor. I could keep you guys here all morning. First of all, I think the first thing I want to show is the benefits of generosity. All right, and so in everything we do, in whether we're union, when we're building our building, we started union, we kept union, we fought, which is in much of the gaming industry, there hasn't been a lot of union. It's been a difficult thing. So we really gave the union a strong arm in the North Bay starting, because we believe in fairness. Then when it came to wages, we're union there also, but with Unite Here and other unions, we wanted to make sure that we went beyond, and that given the area where we're from, you see so often basic wages, but when you get granular, you have to think about the area those basic wages are in. For instance, Marin and Sonoma County, $15 an hour isn't the same as in Modesto. So what do you do, given where you are, to make sure that everybody, all the people that work for you, have a roof over their head, an insurance policy in their pocket to protect their families, and whatever other kinds of needs they may have, from mental health to any kind of other services, literacy services, Spanish to English and English to Spanish programs. All of those sorts of things are so important. So what you do is you create a house of generosity and goodwill. And we were very careful about choosing our management team, that they shared the same values. And by the way, in the business world, I might say, the casino world, and that's not always the case. So we kind of undid the model. Also, you have a model in most of the casinos, or traditionally, where you have those kind of situations where you have, the women with the big breasts and the guys smoking cigars, all that kind of stuff. We undid totally all of that, and we're very proud to say that we have transgender beverage servers. You don't say cocktail waitresses anymore, beverage servers. And that we have totally undone that whole stereotype, so that we have a place, again, where generosity is important and reflects what is so endemic here in the Bay Area, so wonderful, a diverse population in so many ways, and a strong support for the LGBTQ community and others. Regarding the environment, as I mentioned before, it's so important for us to donate. And when you partner with and co-manage, whether it be regional parks or a national park, let's not kid ourselves. Those things aren't free. You're going to have to, come forth with some resources. The other thing that we make sure that we have federal grants, some grants for, say, education and so forth, for our tribe in particular, but we supplement, we use revenues from the casino resort to supplement those programs so that we can offer those programs to all Indian people, Native people, regardless of tribe, in Marin and Southern and Sonoma counties. So we have up to 635 students in after-school programs and other kinds of things that we're doing. In the tribe alone, we've turned around what was at one time an 80% dropout rate to 100% graduation from high school in a very short time. We have given the state government, we've given President Drake of UC enough money in perpetuity so that all California Indians, whether they be from federally recognized tribes or non-federally recognized tribes, can go to the University of California tuition-free. All right? So, I mean, across the board. And when you do those kinds of things as supporting APEC, it bodes well for your business, it bodes well for your people, it's a win-win. And we are an example that it works. And I want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Chairman?
I have a simpler question for the chairman. With all the money and generosity that's going around for the sponsorships and supporting these programs, what's roughly the annual revenue for Grayton Casino?
That's our business. Thank you. Yeah.
Because I know like $5 million for this event and tens of millions on the online gambling state prop from last year. So is there any
Let me
ballpark?
just say this, that we are taking care of our own people very well. We're divesting in other business opportunities, but we make sure that we are able to stand by our mission of social justice and environmental stewardship in a way that is as much as we can afford to give and give well. And so this is just an example of what we were able to afford and give well. Sure, it gets us a lot of attention in certain ways. I'm here this morning. But at the same time, what it does is attracts people to who we are as a business and how we do business.
I have one question.
Yes.
Greg Richardson with the public TV. What does this mean to the Native Americans that are going to hear about how you are reaching out to America, the world, and helping support them and giving them pride and dignity?
Great question. That's another reason, if I didn't state it already, if I understand your question correctly, it's an opportunity to show other Indigenous people that we not only support other Indigenous people in our efforts, for instance, with UC, with the University of California, and other educational programs, but it's a model of an Indigenous nation, sovereign nation, being able to participate with the participating countries in APEC. It shows that we can be here. We have survived, we have endured, and we are now prevailing. And we are here.
We'll take this last question.
Thanks, sir. One more question. We have heard some concern about the promotion of gaming and gambling, particularly within the AAPI community. Can you just address that or respond to that?
Well, there's always been a concern, a large concern about gaming, and I really want to get I kind of don't like that question for that particular community, because you verge on stereotyping. And every community, gambling is as old in human culture as consciousness almost. Will we get the deer? Were you able to get the deer or not get the deer? So, and again, it's very interesting because when I first thought about gaming, I thought getting into it, I thought, I don't want to get into that. That's kind of, not my thing. But again, people who criticize or get concerned about people who game, it's a very elitist kind of thing to decide who gets to, how that people want to have fun. There's problems with all kinds of fun, be it horse racing, drinking, or whatever. And so you're going to have problems, and we really have strong measures in place to deal with problem gambling. And again, but if we provide an opportunity for people to enjoy themselves and see entertainment, I don't want to single out any one community for the ways in which it might abuse a certain kind of activity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And here, as you can see, we have our various department heads and leaders in San Francisco who are involved in facilitating everything related to APEC, and I really want to appreciate them for all of their hard work. They've been busy, very active in having a number of meetings, and we are, of course, taking our direction, a lot of it from our federal partners, mostly because of their roles in protecting the leaders who will be here in San Francisco and making sure that this is not only a safe event, it's a successful one too. So I think at this time we can open it up to some other questions that you might have about APEC in general, and I think you know everyone who's here today, so any one of these folks or myself could answer it. Sergio.
I'm going to ask some kind of granular questions about kind of how this is going to roll out, but it's interesting because it was mentioned about the commitment to LGBTQ rights in this area. There are some APEC member countries that are not as, shall we say, friendly or even legal. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important for San Francisco to show who San Francisco is in that light?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because, you know, my grandmother would always say, you can control what you do, you can't control what other people do. So if San Francisco is not going to abandon our values in order to appeal to or to meet the needs of a particular country. We will make sure that we are good hosts. We will make sure that, you know, all of our communities are a part of this. And for example, the Lieutenant Governor mentioned the event that's happening at Exploratorium, and so many of our various community leaders, including folks who are part of our LGBTQ community, have all been invited to be a part of that particular event. Our goal is business relations and economic development, but it's also building cross-cultural bridges that are necessary in order to help push for change, hopefully in those places where it is most problematic. But ultimately, we will continue to stand strong and be very proud of our community, and will not abandon our values for anyone or any country. We do anticipate that, of course, with any type of event of this nature, there will be potentially protest and other things, and we support people's right to protest peacefully based on our First Amendment, but we will make sure that the perimeters, the guidelines, the safety, and all of those things occur in addition to everything that we plan to do to make the events a successful one.
So I'm thinking about the CEO summit that's going to be happening during the week, and I'd like to hear about how much time you expect to spend with some of the CEOs in town as opposed to some of the heads of state, and also what your message is for them, that like why should they invest in San Francisco based on what they've maybe heard about some of the challenges that you face, particularly in San Francisco?
So I don't know if we're going to have to do a lot of convincing, because some of the business relationships are already happening. And in fact, Astranis, which is a satellite company here in San Francisco, they are working with the Philippines to provide one of their first ever controlled satellite systems in their country. So these relationships are already occurring, because many of the things that are being created in San Francisco are things that people are looking for in their respective places. And so I think, you know, part of it is, you know, I have relationships and meetings, of course, with local CEOs of various companies who are really enthusiastic about these opportunities, the opportunity to share and to, of course, grow and to develop relationships. And in addition to that, you know, conversations with leaders, conversations with other CEOs from other countries are going to be a part of it. There'll be a number of panels. And, you know, I'm going to be definitely out there, stretched a little thin, having different meetings. But my goal is to connect CEOs with one another more so than it is to connect with, you know, the political structure of San Francisco. This is really about economic opportunities, and those things are already happening. Christian?
I'm not sure if this is a question better for Sarah or for the chief, but there's a rally that's set to take place a little bit later on today. People concerned about the economic impact that APEC's going to have on the city, in particular the security concerns. Wanted to see if we could get some input on whether there's going to be an economic impact from these security issues, or whether that'll be offset by the visiting dignitaries and that kind of thing.
Well, there's a meeting, I believe, later today. Is that right, Joaquin? Tomorrow, okay. There have been ongoing meetings with the community and with businesses, more of a door-to-door approach to understand what the impacts they believe could occur and how we could be supportive or helpful. We are not going to be able to change the perimeter. That is, the Secret Service has made their decision. We really fought to try and have less of a perimeter and more of our, the challenges with Central Subway and the cable cars to a certain extent. We've been trying to mitigate the impacts, but ultimately now that we know what the plan is, we have been very proactive in reaching out to community, to businesses, to places to really understand, because all of a sudden the plan was announced and then you get all the complaints. But we had already been in touch with many of these buildings and places to, have these direct meetings to understand, for example, especially with the senior buildings. I know a few of those seniors who live there, and I know that they use public transportation all the time and they walk around the city, but there's also some of those seniors who have paratransit who picks them up. We're working on making sure that those paratransit vehicles can get into those locations. And so there are some things that we're doing very hands-on approach, because we knew this was going to have some impacts. And I want to put it into perspective. We know there's going to be impacts. We know that there are people who are concerned. We're going to do everything we can to address what people's concerns are. But make no mistake, this is going to have a significant impact on our economy. So we anticipate almost $53 million into the San Francisco economy, something that's important, as well as the eyes from all over the world that are going to be on San Francisco. And the goal is to ensure that it's a great event, but we are going to do everything we can to meet the needs of the public in as best as we can. We can't make any promises or commitments that something may or may not happen, but we sure are going to try to listen. We're going to listen, and we're going to try to make something happen to ensure that many of those same places that are concerned, we want them to do well as well. I'm sorry, you had a question down here.
I did, yeah. It's actually somewhat similar to this one. Riley Palmer, TQD, morning. So I guess what would you then tell residents who are anxious about the security measures and businesses who are worried about their bottom line? What do you communicate to them?
So what I communicate with them, first of all, I think I mentioned these different signups for, I don't know them off the top of my head. Do you remember what they were, Mary Ellen?
Yeah.
The things they can sign up for?
SF alert.
You want to say it in here?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, for information, folks. First of all, just to reiterate, we are doing direct outreach to residents and businesses within the secure perimeter area, number one. Number two, if there are any questions, folks can call 911. You can go to the website, the APEC website, which sorry, that was a big mistake on the part of the 911 director. Don't call 911 unless it's life or death. 311, thank you. But the APEC website has maps, it has a calendar of events, really any details you could have. And then finally, 311, if you're not getting your answer in those places, you can call 311 and they're prepared to start referring folks to the right information they need.
Of the San Francisco Chronicle. There's a board of supervisors resolution today that's kind of calling on the city to offset some of the impacts to small businesses and others, including possibly by steering some of that $10 million that was set aside toward helping out small businesses within the exclusion zone. I was hoping you might respond to that.
Well, I think I will respond to that first by saying we need to make sure our bills are paid. We still have to provide additional resources from law enforcement. We're getting support from various law enforcement agencies across the state, including California Highway Patrol. We will have a responsibility to ensure that all of those people have a place to stay while they're in San Francisco. So there are a lot of different layers and moving parts. But I think the thing is we're jumping to the wrong conclusion too fast, because usually a convention allows for an opportunity for those same businesses in the perimeter to thrive. Restaurants are usually booked up. People pass by a lot of these businesses for a quick bite. That area where many new restaurants, where the press club is and other places during conventions, those areas are usually pretty packed and busy. Yerba Buena Gardens and Center for the Arts and all of that area is usually filled with people. So we hope and anticipate that this will have a positive financial impact. But I do think, we plan to go out, we plan to talk to folks, and we need to understand, what their concerns are. We're going to address their concerns, but we're not going to jump to a conclusion that just because the perimeter is going to be impacted, that their businesses are going to be impacted. I think we have to see what happens with APEC and the number of people that are there before we draw any conclusions. But we are definitely open to working things out to support our various businesses in the area.
Will there be any opportunities for small business to do trade and commerce? What could elevate them in the future?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that question because, in fact, part of what we have done, usually the participants have these bags with all these things that are given to folks. And, in fact, almost every item in those bags are all San Francisco born and raised. So they're created in San Francisco, manufactured in San Francisco, and are going to be provided as, ways to show off our city. So we've helped a lot of very small businesses in various neighborhood corridors have an opportunity to showcase what they make available, and we'll have that in these bags with information on these various companies, chocolate, coffee, a lot of different things to really popcorn, things that really are, you open up a bag, you're like, ooh, this is cool stuff. And if you want to buy more, here's where it is. So we're making that connection to our small businesses and also looking at ways to provide access to some of the things that we're doing, supporting and hiring local artists. All of our various stage hands and other folks are union. So there's going to be a big, connection between small businesses and economic opportunity. But ultimately, I think some of the events, like I mentioned, Leland Avenue, the Leland Avenue is the cutest area you want to go to, and they're doing a light show that the community is invited to as APEC kicks off. The Portola has some great restaurants and activities in that area. Joe Longardio, as I said, he's doing a bike ride in the Sunset area, so he's going to do an APEC bike ride and bring the community. He had this big successful night market, and so hopefully I think he might be able to do another one during APEC. We'll see. But the goal is, how do we create these opportunities for people all over San Francisco and make sure that the delegates are also getting into the neighborhoods in some way? Leanne?
Mayor Breed, so you were very vocal, and this is with regard to the homeless, you were very vocal when it came to the decision made by a federal judge who doesn't even live in San Francisco with regard to whether or not they can move the homeless people. Now there is some clarity, I
Yes.
believe, in the last 2 weeks, if my timeline is around, right? So there is a new guidance, and how will you impose that new guidance in that area?
Well, so in that area where Moscone is, we don't necessarily have encampments. We have people who are struggling with addiction and mental illness. In fact, they were out during other conventions, and they were in the parks, and they were in other places. We, of course, as we always do with our various homeless outreach teams, we try to offer help, we try to offer support, and we'll continue to do that. It won't change. But as it relates to encampments in general, and what we plan to do in San Francisco is we have beds, we have shelter beds, we have places for people to go. And our HSOC team is already, they consistently are out there every single day offering help and support. And just to put it in perspective, I said earlier, we've been able to help over 10,000 people exit homelessness. Just the other day, the Supervisor Mandelman, they were in the Castro, there was another tent up, and they tried to talk to the guy, and the guy said he already has a house, told us where he lived, and likes to be in his tent. But there are areas, when you think about it, under our freeways, they're not like what they used to be. The DMV and those areas, we've cleared those out and cleaned those up. Franklin Street and other places where you would see even down these alleyways, lots of tents. There are still tents in the area of Van Ness and certain parts of the Tenderloin and other places, but we are helping people. We're getting them off the streets, and I think the difference here is, you know, we're not just going to walk away. You know, we are going to offer support, and if someone refuses, then we'll give them a certain amount of time to, you know, pack up their belongings, or, you know, we will pack it up for them with our bag and tag policies, and we'll do what's necessary in order to clean up and to clear the streets, especially if we have a place for you to go. And I know people feel like we need to do more. We are doing more. We are clearing areas, and so let's just put it into perspective of so many of those areas that used to, you know, it used to be much worse in certain pockets of San Francisco. And our teams, they have been working for years to do some amazing work to help get people indoors. And right now, I think the biggest challenge that we face is the issues around drug using and drug dealing, and that is a part of what, you know, is also supporting this environment. And so we've had enough, and we have clarity of what we can do, and we have places for people to go, and so now they need to go. Otherwise, we can't just continue to walk past and let them stay on the sidewalks where other problems are being created as a result of it. Wait, who didn't get a question? You didn't get a question back there.
David Welch, KCBS. You mentioned, Mayor, how unique of an opportunity this is for the city. First time in countless years that we've had something so significant. I'm curious how, and this is perhaps for first responders specifically, how are we growing as a city and learning from this opportunity? And I'm thinking about so many departments working together with so many other outside entities.
Yeah.
How are we growing as a city from this experience?
Yeah, well, I could probably let Chief Scott talk a little bit about that, but I will say that, you know, you see all these department heads who are here. I appreciate, not just during APEC, but with the work they're doing at the DMAC and some of the other collaborative work that they're doing. These departments are working with state and federal agencies, which they have, but this is more of a significant magnitude. And we are collaborators. We want to work with people. We want to make sure that they have the information. We want to make sure that, you know, our local law enforcement people are able to do what they need to do, but we're here to help and provide support to follow their direction in terms of what they want to do, but also to provide the feedback and the advice necessary to ensure that we have a safe event. I would just say, I don't know if I could say we've grown. This is just something we've always done, and San Francisco has always been good at, but we've not done it. I mean, the pandemic and other things, we've not done it on this type of stage, you know, in a very long time on the international component. But we have done major events. We always, you know, we'll have a president or vice president visit. We have to, you know, work with Secret Service like we did for Senator Feinstein's service. So there's always those opportunities that present themselves, and we have, you know, the ability and the skill set necessary to continue to do the work necessary to keep people safe in San Francisco when we have these major events. You again. No, just kidding.
So yesterday I was doing a story about some of the impacts on public transportation. There were a lot of the people that I asked who didn't know. They just haven't known yet. And I've looked at the list of all the reroutes and all those kinds of things. How much of this event and then following events leading up to it is going to be about kind of like, listen, it's coming. You also have to kind of get prepared.
Yeah. Well, I'll let, do you want to talk about the Jeff Tumlin to talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
Okay. I'll let
Thank you. So as all of you know, we got word last week about exactly what the closure impacts would be of each of the APEC events. So since then, we've been busy with our communications team getting the word out. So the first place I would direct you to is our website at sfmta.com/APEC. That's sfmta.com/APEC, which we are updating daily as new information comes in. We are now doing the work truly centering communities. So we were out in Chinatown at the end of last week presenting our latest findings and hearing from community about what exactly do they need in order to make sure that all of their detailed needs have been met. We're now doing that work in terms of updating our planning in order to resolve details and then getting that information out to community. On our website, you can also sign up for specific transportation-related alerts, and you can use 311 and the city website in order to provide the team with input about things that we may have missed.
Is there going to be signage? Is there going to be updates to, all kinds of those things as well so that people can see otherwise?
Yes, so there will be signage everywhere, and we are so grateful that the city's call for volunteers was wildly successful. We will be the beneficiary of many of the excess volunteers who we will turn into ambassadors throughout the transportation system, not only to guide people around route changes, but also to invite people to enjoy real San Francisco. So that will be a big part of the work that we will be doing over the next couple of weeks, is getting the mapping and the signage, but most importantly, people on the street ready to provide strong directions.
Any other questions?
Yeah, San Francisco Business Times. There's about 5,000 hotel rooms reserved for police during APEC, and then about another 5,000 for the CEO Summit. I'm just curious if you happen to know kind of who's, is that the city's funds that are going into reserving those rooms at these rates, or if you have any idea where?
Well, first of all, number one, a lot of officers are going to be working for long hours, and we want to make sure that they have a place to rest. We also have officers coming in from other parts of the state and our California Highway Patrol, and they live far distances, so we definitely need to provide places for people to be. My understanding is probably some of the resources that we have with the money that we raised from the private sector will go to help pay for those hotels and places to stay. Where, I mean, there's a lot of different options that we have.
Sure. And then does that also apply to the people who are in town for the CEO Summit?
We are not responsible for the people who are in town for this. We're not responsible for paying for their hotels. Yeah.
Mayor Breed, one quick question. What's your reaction to the DMV ordering crews to shut down operations today?
Well, ultimately, safety is the most important. I want to just kind of back up to say, I am really excited about, the autonomous vehicles and what they can provide, and the fact that San Francisco is a place where it's happening. But I also think it's important that we balance that with the appropriate safety measures to ensure that we are doing everything we can to not oversaturate our streets when we're not necessarily ready. San Francisco is a very complex place to drive around in general for the average person. So, here we are, and my hope is that as a result of this, they can spend some time working on improving their safety measures because we want to welcome this technology, but we want to do so responsibly and safely. Okay, thank you.